In today's video for Advanced Custom Fields, we're going to be taking the repeater field for a spin and showing you how you can start to integrate that into your Elementor page designs. So what we're going to be creating today is a simple layout like this. And if we take a look on the right hand side, you can see we've got a section called Places to Visit. Now these places to visit are all created using the repeater field as part of Advanced Custom Fields. But the problem has always been, if you wanted to add these into your template designs, you had to get in there and start hand coding these things, editing theme files and so on. Well, Elementor's made a lot of things a lot easier, but it still doesn't have a very simple and straightforward way of working with repeater fields. Well, that problem's been fixed with Anywhere Elementor Pro and some of the features they have in there. So today I'm going to show you how we go through the whole process of creating the templates, creating the ACF fields, dealing with repeater fields, and creating something very similar to what you can see on screen in front of you right now. Well, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, the channel where I help you create beautiful WordPress websites. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing and smashing that bell icon below to become part of the WP crew and be notified every time new content is added. So the first thing we need to download and install is ACF Pro. Unfortunately, you can't get away with using the free version because the repeater fields is only available in Pro. So grab yourself a copy of that, install it, and then move on and start installing the rest of the plugins we need. Next up on our list of tools is Anywhere Elementor Pro. Now you do have to pay for this, and you can purchase this on one site, multiple sites, or as many as you want. And currently at the time of recording this video, you can see there's an offer on this giving you 20% off. These are not affiliates and not sponsored in any way whatsoever. So grab this and then start to follow along with the tutorial. Next up, we need Custom Post Type UI or CPT UI. This allows us to create the custom post type and then link that through with the Advanced Custom Fields. So go ahead, download that and install it. Next up, we need Elementor. Now you don't need to have the Pro version for most of these things, but obviously if you want to use Pro or you already use Pro, it opens up a world of more possibilities. But we're not going to be using the Pro features in this particular video. So that's what we need. Next thing we're going to do is jump into the dashboard and take a look at how we start creating all of these repeater fields and integrating it into your site design. Now once you're into your dashboard, you're going to see you've got some new entries in there. CPT UI for your custom post type, custom fields, and so on. So the first thing we're going to do is create our custom post type. So we come over to this and we're going to choose Add Edit Post Types. Once we're in there, we've got the option to go through and create everything we need. Now we're going to keep this really simple, nothing particularly complex in here. We're going to call this Locations. And what we're going to do then is the plural label, we're going to put locations and the single location. If you scroll down, you've got a whole range of other options that you can set and configure, and obviously if you want to, you can configure anything else in here that's needed. For me, I'm going to keep everything pretty much as is. We don't need to worry about that. We just want to use this as a very, very simple post type. So once we've done that, we're simply going to come back up and we're going to say Add Post Type. You've seen now that opens up a new option on the left hand side for locations, and in there we can add our new locations. However, we need to create some custom post fields for that before we move forward. So what we're going to do is come over to Custom Fields and we're going to say Add New. Once that's loaded in, we're going to give this a name. We're going to call this Places of Interest. So the next thing we need to do is create the field group, or in other words, the fields we're going to use. Now, because this is a repeater field, we're going to keep it really straightforward and only use a repeater field. So let's come in and say Add Field. We're going to call this one then POI. So we know Places of Interest. Field name POI is fine. Text field, no, we want to change that now and we want to come down and we want to choose repeater. So we scroll through, there's our repeater option. We're going to choose that. And once we've chosen the repeater field, what we can do then is we can come choose the actual subfields. Now, if you just think of this, a repeater field, exactly as its name suggests, is the ability to create multiple entries inside one particular post. So, for example, we're creating a location like London, and inside London, we might want to have the Tower of London, the London Eye, Big Ben, all those kinds of things can be set up. But what we want to do is have multiple different entries in there for each of these, not knowing how many we're going to end up with. So a repeater field gives us the ability and the flexibility to create and add as many of these sections, these points of interest or places of interest as we want to for every single location. I hope that makes sense. So what we're going to do first of all is create our very first field. Now when we're creating fields in here, it's exactly the same as creating a standard ACF field, meta field. However, they're just contained inside this little sort of repeater field container. So we say add field, and you can see that opens up an area you should be pretty much accustomed to when you're using ACF. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to call this place, oh, actually we're going to call this POI image. Field name is fine. Text, we want to change that and we want to use image. Now a couple of things are important here. You've got return value, image array, image URL, or image ID. We want to use the image URL because we want to return the value of that, and then we can assign that to a graphic block. We're going to choose this to be medium. And you can see you've got the option then for where do we want to store these images. Do we want to make them available everywhere so they go up into the media library, or do we want to upload them specifically to this post? This helps you sort of manage the information or manage the images that are associated with it. So I'll leave that entirely up to you for how you want to work with it. I'm going to leave it at this point in time to all, so it's available throughout my entire site. If I want to, then I can set minimum and maximum file sizes, for example, the width, the height, and the actual physical file size in megabytes. We can also do the maximum, so we can set what we want in there. The allowed file types, if we want to restrict this to, for example, JPEGs and GIF or GIF files, we could drop those in there and separate each of those different extensions with a comma. Again, entirely up to you what you want to put in there. I'm going to leave that blank because I'm just demonstrating how this works, but drop whatever file extensions you want to limit it to inside there. Okay, so we're going to say that's fine. Everything in there is exactly as we need it. Next thing, we're going to come in and say add another field and do the same again. So this is going to be POI description. Once we've done that, I'll just put that to capitals. And we're just going to put that POI descriptions find there. We're going to set this to be a text area because we want to have more information in there. Again, you can see we've got a range of different options that allow us to format and style this particular area. We'll leave that as is. We're going to add our third and final in, and we're going to call this POI name. Again, we'll leave the field name like that. Text is fine, and everything else is exactly as we want. So we've set up our 3 fields inside our repeater area. Next thing we need to do is scroll down and tell it where we want this ACF field to be and how we want it to work. So at the moment you see it says that the subfield is collapsed. We're going to leave all these things as they are. It's fine, but if you want to, you can change any of those. Now the next thing we need to do is tell it where we want these fields to be associated. At the moment it's saying to be sort of associate with the post type is equal to post. So in other words, any post type. We want to limit this to just the locations post type, the custom post type we recently set up. So what we're going to do is going to come in there and we're going to choose location, and then we can come down if we want to and set any additional options. So I'm going to say hide all these different things. I want the content editor on there, and I want to have the featured image on there. Other than that, everything else is going to be disabled. So once we've done that, we're going to come back up to the top and we're simply going to click on publish, and that will then publish our new ACF field group. So we've now done that. So we come into locations and say add new. We'll now see we've got the page title, we've got the body, we've got the featured image, those things we enabled. Everything else is gone except for our places of interest, our POI, which is exactly where we can go through and create those repeater fields. So now we've got our custom post type and our repeater fields all in place. Let's create some content and then we can start using that to build out our templates. So for this example, let's call this one Shanghai. We'll drop in some text. We'll come down there and we'll start setting up some other things. So we'll choose our featured image first. Now don't worry about what images I'm actually choosing. This is more a case of just demonstrating how it works. Okay, so there's the normal things you'd expect to do with any kind of post type inside WordPress itself. Now we can start using the places of interest repeater field. Let's click on add row. You can see that now opens up the 3 custom fields that we've created: the image, the description, and the name. So we've got all the normal options you'd expect in here. So let's just choose some images. Let's pop in a very brief description in there. So I'll just grab a little bit of my text, drop that in there, and we'll call this. There we go. Click add another row, and we can repeat this procedure again. So we'll just insert some more information, and this one will be the road to nowhere. Okay, so there's our custom fields, our custom repeater fields all set up. Let's just publish this, and then we've got our first bit of content. So now you can repeat that as many times as you want for all the different locations alongside all the featured points of interest that you want to add in there. That's the first part of the video done. The next thing we need to do now is start to create the templates. Now there are 2 types of templates we need to create, and this is where we basically bypass Elementor Pro if you're using the Pro version, and we use Anywhere Elementor Pro's own templates. So that's one thing you have to be aware of. You can't use the Elementor templates to do the same thing. So if we come over to our entry where it says AE templates, we're going to come down and we're going to say add new. And in there, we're going to create the template holder for our point of interest or place of interest. Now, when you're doing this, just think of this as being just the template for a single place of interest. We will then use the repeater to actually repeat those repeater fields. So there's lots of repeaters in there. It might not make a little sense at the moment, but bear with me, it will make sense. So what we're going to say is we're going to call this POI repeater block. We're going to come down and you can see we've got some additional settings now for the template. What we need to do is choose the render mode first of all. So we're going to click on there, and if you can't see it, right at the bottom of the list there's ACF Repeater block. Once you choose that, it says what post do you want to preview it with. We're going to come down there and we're going to start typing in Shanghai. So there's our Shanghai post. So we're going to use that as the basic information. Once we've done that, you can see it looks at that particular post type and then says, okay, you've got some repeater fields in there. Which one do you want to use? So if you had multiple repeater fields, you would choose the relevant one from this block at the bottom and then create the template for it. We've only got one, so we've got the POI repeater field in there. Once we've done that, all we need to do now is click on Publish. That will create the template. And now we can start using Elementor to be able to create the layout and the contents of that template. So as we click on Edit with Elementor, that'll open up Elementor as you'd expect to see it. But we need to go down and scroll right the way to the bottom. So I'm going to close these panels up. And you can see at the bottom, we've now got a new section called AE Template Elements. So in there, we've got a range of different widgets we can start to utilize. The one that I'm interested in is the AE Custom Fields. So I'm going to drag that over, drop that into our page layout. Now, once we've done that, we've got a couple of pieces of information we need to insert. The first thing is we need to put the name of the custom field in there. So because we name things POI description, POI image, and so on, we can now put those in here. So we're going to put POI underscore name. Once we do that, you can see it now pulls in the first of our repeater fields, our first entry, in this case, Gardens of Woe. So there's the first piece of information. The next thing we've got is, well, what exactly is it? If we click, you can see default is set as default, but underneath there, we've got a range of other options. So when we choose an image, for example, we can choose that and it will then format that correctly. We can leave default for the actual title. That's perfectly fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to duplicate this. And then we're going to do is we're going to select it. We're going to come over and we're going to say POI image. And you can see what that does is it outputs the link to the actual file itself, which is why I said when we were taking a look at creating the advanced custom fields, we needed to make sure that we put the URL in there as opposed to array or any of the other options. Now it knows exactly where that file resides. So to get that to display the image, all we need to do is come down and choose image as the type. It will then replace it with our image. And obviously we can then go through and do things like format that. So we can say we only want to display a 300 by 300, for example, and we can then just control exactly how that displays. Finally, we're going to come down and we're going to right click and we're going to say duplicate one more time. We're going to come down to this, select it, and this time we're going to do the POI description. And then change that back to default. And there's our description text. Now, if you were creating this and you were using HTML, for example, links and so on, then what you could do is you could choose that to set it to HTML. And obviously, if you were creating links and different things, you could choose the relevant formatting. But in its most basic form, this is now one of those blocks. So we've now got a repeater block. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over to this and we're going to say we don't want to have anything else on this. We're going to leave that as is, but we're going to get rid of the actual page title. Hit update on there. And that's now created our first template inside Anywhere Elementor Pro. So next up, we need to create the template that's going to take our page content, our normal title, featured image, and so on, and then create the location to put our repeater field in. So again, we're coming back into the add new for AE template. So we're going to come on there and we're going to call this one location single template. Okay, so there's our basics. Again, we're going to scroll down. You can see we've got what kind of render mode you want to use. We're going to click on there and you can see we've got options for things like post type archive, taxonomy archive, and so on. What we want is post template. We're going to click on that and you can see that now again opens up a different range of options. So next we've got the post type. What is the post type we want to use? We click on there and we want to set that to be locations. Preview post, again we can do the same thing. So we're going to type Shanghai. Choose that just as our automatic pre-filled data so we can see what we're doing. We're building a template out. We say auto apply, so it'll apply this to every single post that uses, or every single location post. And you can see there we've got the template, and we can choose from any of the normal templates you have as part of your theme that's installed. We'll leave that as theme default for now. Again, we're going to click on publish to make sure we commit those changes before we open up Elementor. Now we can come in and say edit with Elementor. Once we've done that, we've got the normal editing option. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the post title so we can control everything ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through now and set up a basic template, and then I'll come back and show you how we insert the repeater fields. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the bottom again to go to the AE template elements, and we can start to utilize these now. So let's create a new row. In there, we're going to drop in the background image. So we're going to come over to style, and we're going to choose background image, click on dynamic, and we're going to choose our featured image. Now, there's a little discrepancy with this, that for some reason it doesn't show the actual image inside the template as you build it, but it does work perfectly well when you're actually looking at it on a live site. So just bear that in mind. Don't think that there's something wrong, it's not working. It is working, it's just not displaying it inside the template for some reason. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say we want this to be center center. We're going to say we want this to be fixed. We're also going to go through and say we don't want any repeat, and the size is going to be cover. We're going to set a background overlay, and what we'll do on there is we'll simply come in and choose a black color, and we'll leave the default transparency on there. Okay, so there's the first part of it. So at least it shows us the transparency so we can see what we're doing. Next up, we're going to come back over to our widgets, and what we're going to do is we're going to drop in, let's close these down a second so we can just see the Anywhere Elementor ones. What we're going to do is we're going to drop in the post title into there. To do that, we simply grab the AE title, drop that in there, and then we can style that any way we want. So you can see we can easily come in, set up anything we want on you in exactly the same way you used to with Elementor and Elementor Pro. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about these things. I'll come back in a little later before we take a look at the live site, and I'll just tweak the design on here so you can see it looks a lot better than what we currently have. But for now, I just want to demonstrate how you go about building these things out. So we've got the title, we've got the image. Let's just simply drop in the post meta. We'll drop that underneath there, and what we'll do is we'll just set that to be centered as well. I'll style that a little later, and we'll just quickly add in a little bit of padding at the top and bottom. So we're going to say at the top 150, at the bottom 150. Okay, so now we've done that, let's create a simple 2-column layout. Add a little bit of padding on there. Again, same again, we're going to put 50 top, 50 bottom. Once we've done, oh, not 50 left, 50 bottom. Once we've done that, we're going to use this main section to put in the actual content of the page, and on the right hand side we're going to put our points of interest. So we'll come over and we'll just drop in the actual content. So AE post content in that section. You can see that immediately pulls in the Shanghai content that we've created. Now on the right hand side we can simply go through and add in the repeater field. First of all, let's just drop in a page title on this. We're going to use basic, and we're going to drop in a heading, and in there we're going to change that to places of interest. Okay, so we'll style that again later. Once we've done that, come back over, go down to the AE options, and what we want on there is the AE ACF Repeater. That's lots and lots of acronyms. Let's drag that and drop that into the right hand column, and in there you can see it now says what repeater do you want to use. So we've got the template and the actual repeater field. Come in and choose the template. So you can see I've got one I previously created, which is the repeater template, and we've also got the points of interest or places of interest repeater block that we've just created. We'll choose that. Once we've done that, we can then choose the repeater field itself. So if we click, you can see there's our places of interest, or POI. Now, you may find sometimes there's a little bit of a quirk with this, and I'm not sure if this is down to Anywhere Elementor Pro or whether it's something to do with the fact that it's Elementor when you're using advanced custom fields. But sometimes this repeater field shows as being completely blank, even though you know you've set everything up correctly. What you need to do if that is the case is just click update to create your template or save your template, then just reload the page, and you tend to find that kind of prompts it to go and actually search and update and find that repeater field. So just bear that in mind. If you do experience this issue, it's very easy to fix, and that's what generally tends to work. So let's just choose the places of interest, and you can see that now immediately pulls in the places of interest information for us. So now we've pulled in the relevant details, we can now go through and style and configure this to make sure it fits in with the design we're working with. So we select it, We come over and you can see we've got the layout option in there. We can choose from grid or carousel. So if we wanted to have a nice carousel that allows us to scroll through multiple different entries, we could do that. For this example, we'll leave it with grid. Again, if you want to use masonry, so if you have different sizes and you have multiple different items, you can use the masonry option to make sure that it all looks nice and neat and tidy. What we want to do though is set this to simply be one column, and you can see that now tidies everything up on there. We can adjust the column gap or the row gap. We can also go through and style various different elements like the background color, border radiuses, and so on. So at its most basic form, you can see we now have those relevant pieces of information inside our template. So we now click on update. We can take a look at what this looks like in action. So jumping over to our test site, you can see everything is in place. We've got our title, we've got our meta information, all our normal content, and on the right hand side our places of interest have now been pulled in. Even though they look a little bit rubbish at the moment, I'll quickly jump over and make some styling options and change that a little bit. But what you can see is it's very easy to start integrating these repeater fields into your designs and templates. So I've gone ahead and make some styling changes now to the actual basic template. I've updated it, and if we jump over to our test site, you can see if I reload this now, everything is looking nice and neat and tidy except for our actual information on the right hand side from our repeater field. Now the reason for this is we don't control that inside the main template for the actual single post. We control that back in its own dedicated template. So if I come back out of this and exit to our dashboard, come back over to all AE templates, and what we need is the POI repeater block. So we come into that and edit with Elementor. And now we can come in and we can start styling this out. So we can choose, for example, our heading, and we can come through to our styling options, so we can start to control that. So we can set our color, we can easily come over, adjust our typography, and we'll set this to Montserrat. And we'll set the size of being somewhere around about 18 pixels. We don't want this to be too massive, and we'll set 300 on there. Picture we'll leave as is. We'll come to the description area at the bottom, and what we'll do on there is the same again. So we'll come down, adjust our color, adjust our typography. So we want to adjust the typography. We're going to set this to be Open Sans, and inside there we'll drop the text size down to around about 13. We'll adjust the line height a little bit. There we go. And we'll set the weight to be 300. Actually, let's make that 400, it's a bit too small. Okay, so once we've done that, and any spacing and anything along those lines that we want to do, so let's just say, for example, we take this and we want to remove any of the padding around this, we can simply set that, and any margins we can set in there as well to zero those out, just to make sure everything is working exactly how we want it to. Hit update on there, and now if we come back over to our page and refresh this, we should now find on the right hand side our content from our repeater field has been adjusted accordingly. So that's how we use Anywhere Elementor Pro alongside ACF Pro to create our own custom repeater fields and then build out the relevant templates to start working with our designs. Now, if this is new to you and you're used to working with advanced custom fields and you want to learn more, we've got tons of great videos on the channel already. There's a link in the description below, and I'll pop one up in the corner now, so go and check out that playlist so you can get up to speed on the best ways of using advanced custom fields. We have a lot more videos coming in the next few weeks and months, covering a lot more aspects of ACF in various different scenarios, things like used car sales, property sales, and so on, so you can get a good idea of how to start to utilize the tools available to you in ACF and Elementor Pro. And hopefully what that'll do is it'll get you up to speed with creating much more complex, much more feature-rich websites using WordPress. Well, as always, my name's been Paul C. All applicable links are in the description below, and if you've got any comments, questions, or feedback on this video, or anything else you've seen or would like to see covered on the channel, please pop those in the comment section below. Let's get a conversation started and all start to up our game when it comes to learning WordPress and advanced custom fields. My name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.